Welcome, everybody. Forgive me, I'm just getting my bearings a little bit. I'm just going to mute you all as you come in, if you don't mind. There will be opportunity to unmute yourself later on in the program. I'm sure people are going to be joining us as the Zoom session progresses, but we're going to go ahead and get started because we know it is very late. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Megan Feitz, and I am the Director of Programs for Art Possible Ohio. You are participating in the virtual talkback of the film with filmmakers Matt and Nikki Swift of the film that I hope you just saw called Those Who Spring of Me. Just so you know a little bit about why I'm speaking to you, I work for an organization called Art Possible Ohio, which is the state disability agency for arts and disability. And one of the cool things that we get to do every year is offer the ReelAbilities Film Festival Columbus. And Those Who Spring of Me is our second film and our winter festival. And we have just been so honored to have Matt and Nikki's film and Audrey's film be part of this year's festival. We do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors tonight, Ohio Arts Council, the Greater Columbus Arts Council, and the Columbus Foundation for making this film free and available to you all tonight. And I'm so grateful you're all here because I know that 9 o'clock is a late time to be having a hangout, but I think we're going to have a good time tonight. So before we jump in with Matt and Nikki, just a few housekeeping rules. If you're familiar with Zoom or even not familiar with Zoom, you have been muted upon entry. We ask that you stay muted unless called upon to ask your question tonight. It's totally up to you if you want to be on camera or not. That is not a requirement in any way or form. You might want to set your screen to speaker view if you wish to see Matt and Nikki or whoever else is speaking on the screen. It's a little button in your top hand corner and it will say speaker, and you just click on that, and then whoever's speaking will be the large frame on your screen. We do have captions tonight. If yours have not come on automatically, you can go down to the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen. There's a little arrow to the right of it. Click on it and you can enable captions right there. And if there are any technical issues, you can just let us know in the chat box. If for some reason tonight you could not view the film due to something technical, please email us at info@artpossibleohio.org so that we can try to remedy your technical issue. You have till Friday night to see the film, so very likely if it's something we can fix, we'll be able to remedy it before midnight on Friday. So the way this is going to go tonight is we're going to first let Matt and Nikki introduce themselves, and then we're going to open up the floor for questions. We ask that you type your questions in the chat box, which is at the bottom of your screen, almost right in the center, and they will be called upon by me. So the way this is going to work is you need to indicate if you want me to read your question by typing the word moderator before your question. If you want to read your question yourself, you don't have to indicate this. I will call on your name and you'll be able to unmute yourself and you can read your question out loud for Matt and Nikki. If you are unable to type in the chat box for any reason, you can raise your hand using the little raise hand icon and we will try to get to you. We can't guarantee that we'll be able to ask every question that you might put in the chat box tonight, but we'll do our very best. So without further ado, I would like to welcome friends of our organization, Matt and Nikki Swift, the amazing filmmakers of Those Who Spring of Me. Congratulations on such a fantastic film. And Nikki, happy birthday. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Oh my goodness.
I told you were going first. I totally told her she's going first.
Oh man. I was expecting the question that Megan fed us, not who am I?
We'll have that. So
all right, well then I'll start. Hello everybody. Some of you I know, some of you I don't. I hope you enjoyed the film if you've been able to see it. My name is Matt Swift. Nikki and I have been working together for years. We've actually been married. It'll be 21 years on exactly a month almost. So December 19th. And we've been collaborators and working on art and film together for a long time. And You know, my former life is I used to help. I was an educator with film at Ohio State University, and when we started this project, I've since moved on from that and do some other things now. But for the film tonight, you know, I would say that I was kind of the we share the load of directing, but I set up most of the scenes and kind of the camera angles and helped with most of that, whereas then Nikki was much more of the technical side of making sure that you know, things were turned on correctly and had the right settings, and kind of kept me on mark where I needed to be. So all right, that's you.
Oh, Bender's having trouble getting in. So
yeah, somebody that's having trouble getting into the Zoom.
technical person here. Well, you can forward
Yep,
it to her.
I'll fix it.
So what, I'm supposed to talk about myself now?
Yes.
Okay, so I basically made sure everything was running properly on the film, and I wanted to be, so we'll go back so that everyone has more of a history, since Matt gave more of a history. So I wanted to be a filmmaker since high school, and I was the annoying kid who shoved my camera in everyone's face. So yeah, that's basically my background. When we met, Matt was not necessarily wanting to be a filmmaker. That was not his life goal. And I kind of drug him along for the ride.
Like, buddy, I'm not going nowhere. My wife's about to pop.
Nicole, I accidentally muted you. I apologize.
Okay. So yeah, so on this, yes, I was more of the technical person. And basically made sure everything was set up, ready to go. Settings were right on cameras. And then of course I was the editor.
Yep.
And color correction,
Basically all things editing. Like I help some with the sound, because that is a specialty I have, and but as far as cutting and editing everything together, she did it and then would show me, we would talk about it, and then she'd go back at it, and actually like in 3 weeks went from 10% of a film to pretty much 95% of a film. Well, no, not 10, 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Just straight nonstop to try to get it done and edited.
I don't know where my summer went. It kind of just flitted away.
So
Thank you, guys. All right. So I do have a question, Nikki, that you are prepared for. So I will go ahead.
I've already forgotten. All right.
And I do encourage anybody who else has a question, you're welcome to start typing them in the chat box. Please, if you want me to read your question, put moderator before it, or Megan, and I will read it out loud. And if you don't do that, I will call on you to read your question. But I'm going to go first. So Matt and Nikki, and if Audrey is here, who was the screenwriter for this production, why was it important for you to choose non-professional actors with disabilities for this film in particular?
I think representation is important. You can't, the authenticity was there because of the actors. I think that's exactly why.
as far as the choice goes, I mean, the biggest thing here is that we were brought on kind of at the end. So Audrey Todd, the writer of the film, who also plays Sybil in the film, the mother, you know, she had written this script, and then she was very involved with the autism community because of her work with Food for Good Thought and other places, and she already knew of these two people that played, it's PJ Gilmore and Kelsey Cherry that played Will and Tatum, from different parts of her life. And as she was writing this thing, because she works within Food for Good Thought is an autistic employment opportunity, and that's a really huge passion of hers, is creating opportunities for people with autism to learn and develop and network and have a successful career. That she saw these two people, she thought that they might connect well, introduced them, and they did. They kind of connected well. And she's like, these people would be great to play these roles in this film that I'm writing. And I think it was a really important thing to her also, is because the main character, Will, is a projection of her own son in the future, who was a young teenager at the time when she started writing the piece, and was like, well, what would happen 10, 15 years down the road? What might this look like? And knowing that she, her son watches a lot of films, that's a really big gateway for them to communicate and have and like work together. And there was never any place where he was seeing someone like him on screen. And so being able to find someone who could represent him on the screen was, at least that's I don't want to put too many words in her mouth, but that's the feeling that I got. That was the passion that we saw, is that we were we were constantly actually looking at her son to figure out what we were going to do. Like the breakfast scene in the film, if you've seen it, him running around, he like picks up a coat hanger and runs around the kitchen. That's Liam. That's her son. That's something he would do. He would come home after we're filming and he would run around the little like cul-de-sac that they have in their house from the kitchen to the front room and back again. And we're like, oh, so PJ's nervous in this scene. He needs to show a nervousness, a physicality to it, right? And so I just, that was a really important thing to do, is to try to represent that. And picking the autistic actors is just, it's about the representation. Like, this has not been done before. This was literally an experiment from day one. We didn't know if it was going to work. We didn't know if we were going to be able to make it happen, but we kept testing ourselves and trying to come up with accommodations and juggle different choices to say, because the main goal was to try to represent this as much as possible. And if not, actually have some kind of documentary film to show why it didn't work, so that we could have that discussion.
Yeah, and I don't think I mentioned that the ReelAbilities Film Festival is a festival dedicated to normalizing disability in the film industry. And I think that you have really encompassed that on every level with this film, not only by just hiring actors, but your own personal experiences, working with professionals who work with individuals with autism. I know that there were a lot of different connections, but especially those actors. I think that representation piece is essential to that mission. So I'm super excited about that. Katie has a question. Katie, do you want to unmute yourself? If not, I will read it. I'll give you a second. Katie, let's see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read your question. I know you have another one later on, so maybe we can ask that one. Katie asks, can we meet the actors? She would like to meet them.
I do not see that they're on here tonight, or yeah, I do not see the actors on here tonight. So
Yep. So it'd be great if they could. Maybe we'll have to find another way in the future. We are submitting the film to other festivals, and maybe this will happen again. This is the common way that festivals are running right now. And so, this was kind of a hope that at some point we would be able to get both Kelsey and PJ into the mix and be able to have them be on hand to talk to people as well about the process.
Great. And then Katie's second question is, does Will actually use technology to?
So PJ was not familiar with the assistive type text device. But the minute we put one in his hands, he would just sit in the corner and talk to us with it. He was so mild that it almost seemed like he preferred to use it, at least around us. Maybe we were so boisterous that he would rather use that voice to talk to us. But he really took to the device and would sit there and type different things on it while we were prepping and everything. So
Yeah, and so within the film, I mean, it's the two actors that were chosen. Kelsey is, you know, her character is, even as you can see in that, it's like the third scene that they're walking. You know, you can see she can get very hyperactive and kind of reactive to her environment, and she's like disgusting, disgusting. Like she's getting a little frantic sometimes. And PJ is on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, where, you know, if you didn't engage him, you might not actually hear from him. He would sit and be very mild in his presentation. And so that's one reason they were chosen, is because they kind of both, that like he brought her down and she brought him up a little bit. And he was kind of the closest actor we could get to being able to play that role.
he is verbal though.
But he is verbal. But like Nikki said, as soon as we gave him the device to start using for the role, even his mom was surprised at how well he had taken to it. And he would just talk to us and practice and was typing stuff in and just, he loved using it. And that became apparent. And we actually got to see him kind of grow a little bit, because the film took 4 years and we got to see him really grow.
We saw both of them. Yeah.
Like grow in a certain way by the experience of being in the film, which was pretty amazing.
Awesome. Somebody wants to know, is Audrey online with us? I know
Yes.
Audrey.
Yes, she is.
Chat,
She is being silent.
Yeah. Yeah. They also said she's a wonderful, talented person. So.
Yes, I saw that came from Oliva. So
Cool. Yep. Yeah, Audrey's got a full house. So she's got her son Liam, her daughter, who's also in the film. Tessa, she's one of the two girls in the bakery and then running around in the front yard. And then she has two brand new twins that are maybe like a little over a year old. So actually the last scene we shot was the big ask scene, is what we call it. It's when it was the most complicated scene, where we had to have all 4 actors in the scene at one time. There was no other way to accomplish it, and we knew that was going to be the most complicated. So we shot it last, knowing that we could help build up the relationships with all the actors and how everything was going to work, so that when we got to the most complicated scene, they had basically had 4 years of training on how to pull this off. And at the time, Audrey was already expecting in that scene. And so we were like, you know, we're like, we got to get this thing in, because it's gonna, you know, we're gonna hit a point where this isn't gonna look, it's not gonna look the same anymore.
Oh yeah. So we do have a question from Jennifer, and then Angela, I saw that you had your hand raised, so we'll get to yours right after Jennifer. Actually, I think Jennifer has some comments. Jennifer, do you want to speak?
All right, I think I turned it off.
yep, you're there.
Hey, Nikki. Happy day. All right, so as I was watching this, I wrote a bunch of stuff down. I'm going to read you my random list, okay?
Okay.
I would also like to add that my sister has been a caretaker for an autistic from basically high school into manhood for probably 15 years. So it's been an interesting thing to watch her relationship develop with him. So my first thought was, it felt like manga. It was a slow burn.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I don't know how many people that would or wouldn't amuse, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved all the background noises that you added,
Right, me.
ticking clocks, and the fact that you could hear the other person talking on the other side of the cell
Please.
phone.
Come here.
Oh, you could hear me? You could actually hear me? I was the other voice.
Yes, I could hear you, but it wasn't enough to hear anything specific. It was just enough to know that there was someone there.
Awesome.
All right, so I really enjoyed watching them dancing and cooking together.
Uh-huh.
And
You know,
that's
it's-
completely them.
So the dancing,
Oh, I know,
they
I know,
ad-libbed that.
I know. I absolutely love it. It's like, I don't know what kind of reach that this movie is going to make, but I hope that there are people that are able to see that the autistic community is real people. They have real emotions. They have real feelings. They are people, and they have they experience life in a different way than we do, but they experience life to its fullest as well. So I don't know. So anyway, I also really enjoyed McDaniel Swift Education. That was hilarious. Thank you. All the textures, different animals coming and going, it really spoke to it. The music was perfect. I don't know where you found this artist, but the music was absolutely perfect at every point.
Again, that was Audrey.
tonight-
She had that on board before she had us on board.
Yep.
So
Audrey, well done. Oh my God. Perfect. Nice gluten-free reference. The baby doll in the background when the mom is holding the baby doll for the little girls that are buying something or other. That was a nice touch. I show the ring. I was like, seriously, you're not going to show the ring he chose? The coat hanger. Like, after a while, I noticed that, and I realized that he was carrying a coat hanger around a lot. So what was that?
So a lot of people on in the nonverbal side of the spectrum have tics that they use. And please correct me if I'm completely incorrect, Audrey. And so Audrey has met with people that carry around spoons or other things that are everyday that they just take a liking to. And so we had Will, because hangers were readily available, we had Will take a liking to hangers. And so they appear in several scenes, just in the background or wherever, or they're prominent.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'll notice throughout the
felt
film
very real.
that PJ's costume constantly changes. I think there's the same shirt is only worn twice. Like there's one shirt that's worn twice. It's always a different outfit, whereas Kelsey's is not. And that is because her wardrobe does not change very often. She actually has a costume basically that she wears, and that is part of her presentation.
It's an interesting costume, though.
So I think she went through 3 or 4 different costumes during the 4 years.
And apparently before we met her, she had a ball gown phase. And we missed the ball gown phase.
Oh,
And I was sad.
that's really
I know.
too bad, honestly.
So awesome. Thank you for the feedback.
Audrey, I'm going to respond. She wanted to give up some props to the musicians. She said, thanks to Belarus, Kay, and Joseph Barker. They're the musicians. They have wonderful company that teaches music lessons through Columbus Musicology. So check them out, I believe, if you are interested in learning more about them and maybe hearing more of their music.
Yeah, all of their albums are downloadable. If you look up Belarus and find their website, you can buy digital copies of their disc, and So, and I think you can get physical copies, right? Didn't we buy a physical copy?
No,
of
we
one?
bought it.
Okay.
We bought a digital.
But yeah,
I
so
think you can though.
and it's all of that. This was from like 2 or 3 different albums, this
Yeah.
soundtrack. So
Katie has another question. She says,
Oh, Angela was next.
oh, I'm sorry. Angela, I didn't get to you yet. Forgive me. Angela, go ahead.
She's muted.
You are still muted, Angela. So let's see.
There you go. Okay, so Megan,
oh hey.
Ryan, and I were able to watch it, and I really appreciate being able to pause during it, because we started to watch it, you know, right at the beginning, and then life took over, so we were able to cook, and we were able, so that was perfect the way that you guys, the way that was designed, because it was like, oh my gosh, wait, I was gonna make this for dinner and now I can't, and we were doing, so it was very dynamic, which we appreciated, and it was very, it allowed us to continue following the movie until the end, so that was beautiful. We really, Megan really enjoyed seeing people. So they're waving.
Hi.
we recognize you. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, really enjoyed seeing people playing their different roles. And in it, okay, I'm sitting there looking at it like, oh my gosh, I need to get to the punchline, but it allowed, the mindfulness that took over was wonderful, because it was all about that. So I loved the scene with Audrey and, oh my gosh, I keep going back between the character and the real name. The son being in the kitchen at breakfast, and it, when you're in that world and you're going through really, really intense moments of decision making, it really, I thought it was beautifully done how it was depicted, the mindfulness, being present, using, I have a person I'm with who uses a talker, and the way that interaction was depicted was beautiful, because, you know, here you're talking about some really complex stuff, and then, but I still want to go to the jewelry store, which was like, okay, yes. So if you get that, you get that. And so I think it really resonated. But I thought it was beautiful. The I don't know if the right word is cinematography or if it's but it was beautiful, because it really again put you in the moment, and it highlighted the different changes of seasons.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it really did make you be in the moment. And I really appreciated the RDI stuff that Audrey was doing, because of the not talking and the conversations that they had, like when they were doing, okay, here, let's do the plate. And that was beautiful. That right there is just, I mean, you could sell so many of even just these clips of different concepts. The eugenics I thought was beautiful, because I really like how, well, Megan, I think I can say this for you. She really liked being able to see the professor talking about eugenics. But I like how they covered the whole spectrum, including the, you know, the role that it has played across the spectrum that isn't always shared. You know, like the you know, he talked about the activists and how it impacted the African Americans, like the Margaret Singers and things like that, but also bringing it back to full circle of, you know, we are all in this and this is not good. It was beautiful how Audrey talked about you cannot deny choice. You know, going back to the concept of consent, the civil rights. So it was beautifully woven into freedom of choice and what our culture and thankfully other cultures of modern, you know, the ones, I don't know how to say that, you know, like the US and the British, and we have had the capacity to choose, and we take it for granted at this point. And it still comes down to choice. And I thought it was beautiful how you guys wove that in there.
Yeah, we actually just to go on that note there, when we were making this film, we had just started. We had met a friend of ours who's actually from India, and he had moved here, and we told him about what we were doing, and he's a doctor and he's doing all kinds of different research and stuff, and so he was really interested in the topic and the kind of the genetic aspects and all the stuff we were covering. And he said, like, it's so amazing you're making this film. This film could not be made almost anywhere else. Like, there are very few other like where he's from, no one would make this film because they're still too ashamed to talk about all the things that we're trying to talk about in this film. And he was just blown away by the fact that we were taking this challenge on.
Oh, it's beautiful because it's not in your face. It's very provocative. It's very thought provoking, and it's, I think actually the timing is perfect because everybody this situation has been set upon us to where we have to be quiet, and we do have to listen, and we have to settle and be still. And it's a perfect time for this, I think, to come out. And I really like that I love the wordsmithing that Audrey had with the dictionary, because it is just that. And capacity stuck out with me because it's capacity, and your concept of capacity. I don't know, coat hanger.
Yep.
Absolutely. I was like, what's the deal with the coat hanger? So
I'm so happy to hear that you love the dictionary, because everybody was against me on that scene. So I'm like over here like a little giddy schoolboy right now.
We were debating cutting that scene.
Everybody's like, that's the one. It's an hour and 50 minutes. We could cut a scene. That's the scene you could cut. I'm like, no, we can't cut the scene. Here's why. But then also that dictionary she's holding was a miracle. So she had written this scene with this dictionary, and suddenly we're like, Audrey, where did you get these definitions from? Most people don't realize definitions are copyrighted. You cannot just publish a definition without getting permission to do so. And so we had to find a definition from before 1932. And it lucked out that the antique store on High Street, just south of North Broadway, had an Oxford dictionary, leather bound, 2 days before we were shooting that scene for like $35. And we bought it for the film. And I was like, I can't believe we found this. This saves this entire scene. And I argued so hard to keep it in because just the miracle of that dictionary. So I'm so glad to hear that that resonated with you.
Dictionary, because we are dictionary people. So So if you're in this club, as I say, it really is, you know, understanding the meaning, the idioms. And it was beautiful because we have dictionaries. And, you know, I looked at that and I was like, I have to go get my dictionary from my parents' house that's like that too, because it's like, and I'm going to get that before the other kids get it. You know, I don't mean it like that, but my point is we love our dictionaries, right?
Yeah.
Grandmom she goes through her dictionary too. It's coveted, but it also, I think, embraces this world because it's no judgment. No judgment. It's just, how do we navigate this? So kudos to you guys, and I love your corsage. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll voice the corsage for Nikki because it's probably a little bit harder for her to tell the story. So everybody, she has this corsage on. So I've been buying her a corsage for her birthday every year for years now, and it's a tradition because that's gonna be hard for me to say. So, Nikki lost her mom when she was 15 years old, and her dad she'd never met. She lost him when she was 3 weeks old. She became a ward of the state at 15, and her mom would always get her a pink sweetheart rose for her birthday. And so I took on the mantle of that tradition. And so
today's your birthday?
yes.
Love it. That's it. Oh, kindred spirit. We have a family member whose birthday is today, and they both, you guys are not going away. Very
it's the best
strong
birthday
people.
in existence, November 18th. That's
Yep.
what she told
Wonderful.
me. So thank you
Wonderful.
very much. Thank you very much for your comments. It's so great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, yeah.
Go ahead. We have another question. Someone asks if you two, Matt and Nick, if either one of you have autism, and how you feel you can represent the autism community.
Neither of us have autism. We have several friends on the spectrum, and we have worked with the autism community for several years now. I got a text after the film from one of my best friends who is on the spectrum, who thanked me for helping make this possible because she felt that it got her. So
yeah, I mean, we a few years ago we did a whole educational program where we helped middle schoolers and high schoolers from the Bridgeway Academy make short films about bullying. So we have some history of working directly with some young kids to help them like tell their own stories and then help them figure out how to act them out and then actually film them. We let them like run the camera and everything when we were doing this thing. So that's part of it. We relied really heavily on Audrey as well to give us feedback of what she thought was reasonable or not. And so you know, that was a really, we would always like shoot a scene and then talk about the next scene for hours afterwards.
Yes. And PJ and Kelsey were given the authority to make a lot of their own decisions. Yep. So the picnic scene is them just doing their own thing. The dancing is them doing their own thing. Yeah, we said, hey, we want to get a scene of you dancing to some music. So can you guys dance together to this song? And that was them inventing their own dance. Yeah, they invented their own dance and danced together. The same thing with the picnic scene. That scene was originally going to have dialogue and stuff over it, but we had to cut it actually because of the Coke incident. Because we didn't expect, that was a perfect moment. We did not expect the Coke bottle. So Kelsey was like really into, she had to have like Coke was her drink at that time. But we knew we couldn't show a Coke bottle. So we bought this. I was like, oh, well, I'll go to Target and I'll get this bottle that you can close and open and it don't have any markings on it. And we'll put the Coke in it.
And I didn't think about, they put it in the picnic basket and moved it around. And so when they went to open it, it exploded. And we had no idea this was going to happen. And when it did, the entire house just lost their minds. We started laughing and giggling and like trying to stop ourselves from talking. And we couldn't help it because it was just, it shocked everybody. It shocked them. But we just said, have a picnic, have fun. And so all this stuff where like they're changing pizza with each other. And I was like, well, you know, and act like we just said, like, act like you're a couple and you care about each other. And then they took it from there. We didn't really give them, they were doing such, every time we got done, I was just like, you were amazing. Like all we had to do was give you a scenario and you made magic. And so we were really able to just kind of take the back seat. Like I knew where to point the camera. Like,
and I think
that's it.
Honestly, Audrey talked a lot about the script with her nonverbal son. So a lot of it was he reacted to it. And I think a lot of it came from him in a way, like not, yeah.
Well, Nikki and Matt, you got to check out the comments or save them before you leave because you're getting lots of compliments. I have a question about, that someone actually texted me about the two actors that you were just referring to. Specifically, I love that they improvised a lot. I love the Coke scene. You like that was a wonderful moment, as well as the dance. But can you talk a little bit about, and I know you expounded a little bit about this in some of the articles that came about how you used your cameras in filming this and how you only did still shots and things like that, and why that was important to
so this is so we have a long history of being trained in film. So we both have undergraduate degrees in art history and film and media production from Ohio State University, and we have to give complete thanks to our undergraduate mentor, Professor Ron Green, now emeritus there, for exposing us to so many different types of film that from all over the world. Like we have just seen so many films from all over the world, different styles of making. And when I started teaching film, I would always tell students that when you need to start to think about a film and maybe you're like you have to start answering questions about how you're going to make it, go back and think about other people's films. What did they do? Can you borrow from someone else's filmic style to then answer a question that you need to answer for yourself? And so a big part of this film was that we wanted to start from accommodations first. We knew this. We knew that we had actors who were on the spectrum, that they might have their own, like we all do, eccentricities that we might need to account for in some way in the production. And so we did several test scenes. So there's a set of test scenes where they're just around a table and PJ and Kelsey are like having a snack, and we had them like put flowers in a vase and just act some stuff together to see how they worked together, how they conversed, to get a sense of like what Kelsey's speech was like, how PJ could use the touch device. Like we tested all this stuff out, and we figured out one thing that was right away was that even if we wanted them to do an action more than once, they weren't going to be able to do it precisely exactly the same way, enough that if we used one camera that we could edit those together and it would look seamless in any way, which then would affect the audience's ability to engage with the character. And so we figured we had to shoot this more like a documentary, and we had 3 cameras on most of the scenes. So there was the medium front shot, and then we would have more of a shot and a reverse shot, and we would have all 3 cameras running. And so that when you were seeing the scene, you're seeing that scene, you're seeing the actors act that specific scene. What we're doing is just moving from camera to camera to kind of keep the pacing, to accentuate the acting, in some way to kind of drive the emotion in that scene a little bit through the edits, but it's a lot on the actors to do it. And we also figured out moving cameras were going to be an issue. Like, you know, there had to be a setups cameras, because it's lots of cameras, A, and then B, also we couldn't have a lot of people on set. It's a small, you know, just north, it's a Glen Echo home, you know, Clinton Village style, 3-story house, not a lot of huge rooms. Everything's like 10 by 10, you know, 12 by 14, not a lot of space. And so A, you couldn't get a lot of people in there, but B, also because of the kind of what we needed to get from the actors, a lot of lights, a lot of extra noise, all the extra stuff that comes with more people and more equipment, we had to negate, because we weren't going to be able to get the actors to do what we needed to do, because they were the most important. The most important thing is that we let them be able to be themselves and be these characters, because without that, you can't, it's hard to make a good film. Like if you can have a great script, but if your actors are they're okay, I mean, it might be okay, but like we have a pretty decent script, and we had these people were able to do a pretty decent acting job. They were doing, in my opinion, a great acting job. And so that was what was most important. And so we used, you know, we came to decisions looking at past films, to try to, it's more of a foreign style, more of a lot of stuff that comes out of Asia, you know, a lot of older Japanese style stuff out of Hong Kong, some French film, you know, more artistic style stuff that is more of a portrait. The film's a portrait. It's not this fast moving action film. And so, you know, that's why, you know, it's a lot of static shots. Also, we were concerned with the ability, you know, this is very low budget. It's $14,000. There are 20-minute films that cost $1 million. This is almost, you know, 2 hours for $14,000 with local grant funds. And so we used equipment that you could just go to any store and buy, because like in one day, one of our audio recorders broke. And so we needed to just go run and buy a new one. And we had to have that flexibility, because we just didn't know what was going to happen every day on a set. Like if something went awry and it was a very stressful day, anything could happen, and we needed to be able to be nimble for that reason. So there was a lot of thought and intention put into like how we're going to shoot this. It's going to be steady. We're going to put these 3 cameras together. We need to make sure we have every single shot covered from as many angles as possible, so that then Nikki could work the magic of actually making this seem like, you know, you're just kind of just fly in the room, moving around. You know, our kind of dream was like, this is almost a story of that somebody's telling a kid. All the cameras are like around 36 inches high. They're kind of at the height of a young child, kind of looking up at everybody. So we have this kind of, you know, a little theory between ourselves that this is a young kid like hearing the story about how these people met. So that you know, there was a lot that went into how we made these decisions.
I think that answer is an exemplary way of really putting access first, before doing anything. And I think that is essential to creating a more equitable film industry. So I really appreciate knowing that background and that process. And I really hope that other people can read those, you know, read the articles and hear you speak and learn from that, because it is the only way, to get past the systematic oppression that people with disabilities face in every industry. I want to be conscious of time.
Mm-hmm.
It is 9:50, so I think we are going to wrap things up. But Nikki and Matt, make sure that you do save those comments, because there's some really lovely feedback in there, and people who had to leave a little bit early but wanted to give their 2 cents on what a wonderful film this was. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I want to thank you for viewing the film and participating in the talkback. ReelAbilities and films like this couldn't exist if people didn't want to watch the films themselves. Thank you for engaging with us. Thank you for your wonderful questions.
And Megan, you mind if I just stop you just for a second, just really quickly? So on the call, I know that our production assistant, which we owe so much to, Danny Bean, is on the call here. Just say hey real quick, Danny, so the camera pops over. You can unmute.
Well, okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yep.
there you go.
Ah, here we go. Yeah, it was a blast. It was a lot of fun working on the project.
Awesome.
So
So-
I'm glad to be a part of it.
So Danny is like, we wouldn't be able to, this was a 3-person crew that shot this entire film. And you know, Danny really helped. And our friend Matt Yoho is also on the call here. With the big ask scene, we needed at least another person because there was no way we could operate all the cameras and usher all the people around. And Matt came in and helped us out on that day. And so like, we really owe a lot to them being willing to help us out, make this happen. Danny was really a trooper because he had to do a lot of labor and carry a lot of stuff around for us. And then the one last, there's another shout out, you know, there was sponsors for the film festival, of course, and we owe a ton to Ohio Arts Council and Greater Columbus Arts Council, Puff and West Foundation. They all sponsored us with grants. There was some crowdsourcing that was done. We have a few people on the call that were part of that. But then also Food for Good Thought, which is the autistic employment opportunity that Audrey is part of. You know, they were our fiscal sponsors to make these grants happen. And so like, and they make these beautiful, like these great baked treats. So like they got lemon bars and cookies and brownies and stuff. And like, we almost every week now we go to Crimson Cup and get a coffee. So your local Crimson Cups, like you can buy these. And they're these great treats that are made as part of this autistic employment opportunity. And it's a good way to support this community within Columbus. So I would just encourage everybody to support that foundation by, you know, picking up a brownie or a lemon bar sometime from a Crimson Cup, because it helps go to a really good cause. So without this film, without them, this film wouldn't have been possible.
I'm all about eating cookies for, you know,
Right?
support great programs. Well, if there's not anything else, again, I want to thank you all for being here and spending your evening with us. And I hope you don't mind, Nikki and Matt, but I want to pitch our next film so that they'll join us again, and you're going to be part of that as well. So if you really enjoyed your film today, please consider registering for our January 13th film, which is a documentary called Code of the Freaks, which is not really ironically, which is about representation in film. It's a wonderful film, and we're going to actually have Matt back. He's going to interview one of the filmmakers. Nikki's going to be, I guess, behind the scenes doing what she does.
Where I am much better.
But you can follow us at ReelAbilities Film Festival Columbus on Facebook. You can follow any of our social media Art Possible Ohio sites, and we'll have more information about that when registration opens. Without further ado, I thank you all, and I bid you all good night. Get some good sleep and hang in there. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks everybody for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.